Evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? The BBC homepage today is unequivocal. There is only one story of note and it dominates the page. We're watching you, far-right protesters warned. Yep, they're watching you. They're not watching the people who have caused the overwhelming majority of death in the last 10 years in the UK. They're not watching them. Clearly they aren't watching them because every time they say they're watching someone, the next time you hear about them, they're getting shoveled into the back of a meat wagon after cutting loads of kids' heads off or blowing people up at a pop concert. So they're not watching them, but they're definitely watching you. There's so much of it nowadays by the people they aren't watching, you don't even hear about it all, do you? Here's one from yesterday nobody's talking about. Judge rules Wolverhampton machete attack 12-year-olds cannot be named. The media's public interest argument has been rejected, as naming the boys would harm their welfare. Didn't harm their welfare as much as the bloke that they carved up like a buttered swan on the common in Wolverhampton. Probably harmed him quite a lot more. The other reason the judge refuses to name them is because it's very difficult for a red-blooded Englishman to pronounce names like Umbutu Undum Bundum Weto. Okay then, before I start with this video, let's just sum up of what's gone on in the last week. Because being a chippy northerner who likes being right more than he likes being happy, we're exactly where we expected to be, right? About 3 years ago, myself and many millions of small c conservatives, or very conservative or right-wing people, said, you know what? After the lockdowns and a million migrants moving in every year under this apparently conservative but actually very woke government, I refuse to vote for them and I will see the commies in Downing Street before I vote for the Conservatives again. That was the promise that I made several years ago, and I implored you all to do the same. And we got our wish. We knew it was going to happen. We knew what was coming. Labour didn't win the election. The woke, not conservative conservatives lost it because 4 or 5 million people, which is exactly the number I was coming up with years ago, did see the sense and vote reform. The Conservative Party has to die. You have to rip the plaster off now and put up with the commie gibberish you're going to get for the next 5 years. Because if you don't, you will end any chance you have of survival as a nation as we know it. And that's not hyperbole. If we just have this managed decline and we kept voting Conservative and we get 700,000 net foreign people moving to the UK every single year for the next 20, you are done. You can't fight when you're outnumbered. If that happens, you will be getting forcibly converted on the business end of an AK-47 in 2044, and there will be nothing you can do about it. So the way I see it, it's almost what people like to call an accelerationist approach. The only sliver of a chance that the UK and Europe has now is if in the next 4 or 5 years, definitely inside this decade, you start getting genuinely conservative movements who do want to conserve British and European culture and Irish and Scottish and Welsh and everybody else's culture. And they do stop importing more people and they do start deporting illegal immigrants, criminal elements, all of that stuff. It is the sliver of a chance that Europe has now. It's on a knife edge. If that happens quickly, it's possible to crawl back from the brink. But if we'd have voted Conservative, and we just carried on with that managed decline, and we import 7 or 8 million men to Europe every year for the next 20, you are done. There is no chance. You can't win once you're outnumbered. The only strength you have is in numbers, and if we carried on with this managed decline, we're all done. Europe as a continent ceases to exist as we know it. It's one of the few times I've disagreed with Peter Hitchens, but we are where we are. He probably doesn't care because he's proper old and knackered and he'll be browners in about 10 years' time anyway. But I've got a lot of friends and family, almost all of them still in the UK. They've got young kids. I don't want to see the girls walking around looking like a ninja in 2045 and there being absolutely nothing anyone can do about it. So we got what we asked for. And obviously it wasn't hyperbole, was it? I'll see the commies in Downing Street before I vote Conservative again. And that's what we've got. Full-blown commies doing full-blown commie things. Here's just a few excellent examples.
I've got a pacemaker and they've just arrested me for walking up here.
No, to reach the section 35
Oh, because
and
of
section
their...
14.
You want to do them any tighter?
That's why I'm trying to lock them so they can stop getting tight.
Well, actually, you're really tightening them.
Well, I'm not.
You really are tightening them, and you're really making me...
This is my colleague.
You what?
So can you relax?
You joking?
5 seconds.
Are you joking? I've never been arrested in my life.
Madam.
I have, don't you miss, don't you, I have never been arrested in my life. I'm 73 years old, and I have come here because of them babies who's died, and I'm being arrested.
Yes, so exactly as we expected, right? What did you expect to happen when they start running the show? A 70-odd-year-old woman who's never been arrested in her entire life. A life of good, of doing good. Paying her taxes, educating her kids, and not just her kids, being a member of a community. And now, criminal vermin. That's how the state view people like that. 74 years, never once been in trouble with the law. And now she's getting nicked because she's a little bit sad that some little girl's got the throats cut by a Welsh bloke with a name that's 40 consonants. Although, hang on, I suppose he could be Welsh if his name was all consonants. I asked the PM at today's press conference if he had a message to the British community following the attacks on the bell end-shaped churches. Yes, because if there's one thing we should all be worrying about after a load of little girls get knifed to death, it's the feelings of hairy-ass blokes like Shihab Khan.
British up and down the country will have seen these riots or demonstrations, whatever you like to call them, unfold. They've seen mosques get attacked. They've watched as shops have been looted. There have been chants which some would say are grossly offensive. Partly this has happened because of misinformation. They now say they feel unsafe. What is your message to the British community, and what are you willing to do to make sure they feel safe in their own home?
In relation to the community, look, me be very clear. I will take every step that's necessary to keep you safe. And that's why I said what I said about mosques being attacked because they're mosques. The far right is showing who they are. We have to show who we are in response to that, and that's why we pulled together this response this afternoon to try and coordinate and make sure that as we face the next few days and weeks, we have the strongest possible response in order to ensure that there is safety for all of our citizens.
Not all of them, knobhead. Not all of them. Not the little girls, not little Safi or Emily Jones or any of the girls scattered across the side of the Manchester Evening News Arena or knifed to death by a Rwandan fella. Not worrying about their safety. You know, the actual big issue from the last week. You know who really needs a lot of help? Big hairy blokes with beards. That's who we should be worrying about when little girls are getting knifed to death by Rwandans. Definitely makes a lot of sense to me. Totally logical. That's why the Spartans sent out 300 little girls to fight the Persian Empire, while all the big hairy blokes with beards, they stayed at home. Because you've got to look after them. Obviously, I responded that, you know, things like Manchester Arena and 7-7, the Borough Market and the Reading killings and Nice and the Bataclan and Madrid and Brussels bombing and, you know, all of that stuff has shown us who they are. But no, the PM doesn't want to talk to me, does he? Because I'm working class and look like this, which means therefore I'm a terrible person, even though I've never once knifed a little girl in the face. Fortunately, Carol Vorderman's here to show us the way, the kindness and tolerance of people in Southport. Oh, kindness and tolerance. That'll fix it, yeah. If Charlemagne and all the people that fought at the gates of Vienna used only kindness and tolerance, I'll tell you where that would have got them. Staked to the floor and bummed by the Ottomans. That's how that would have went. Kindness and tolerance doesn't stop men with AK-47s from marching into pop concerts and butchering people like animals. To use a somewhat cliched military verse, all soldiers here, the people are sheep and the sheep need to be protected by sheepdogs with sharp teeth. Kindness and tolerance doesn't work against little Rwandan fellas with very sharp knives. I don't know what the point of this virtue signalling is, and judging by the numbers, there's going to be more of this. In fact, it's going to start occurring every week, which again is what we knew was going to happen. And it's what has to happen because Joe Normie is not interested in springing into action as long as he's got an internet connection and a full belly. And, you know, taxpayers' money so he can buy Super Kings and Special Brew. As we've said many times, this keeps getting worse and it gets more frequent until eventually the system collapses. Because if it doesn't, the continent is done. Your granddaughter will be getting married to an 83-year-old man who looks like a wizard from a fantasy novel. She won't be allowed to read or work, and if she complains about it, she'll get battered round the head with a brick. That's the culture that we've imported. It's time to make a decision. Comrade Starmlin, you need to think about it. Are you going to grapple the root cause of the problem? Or you could just, ban complaining about the problem. You going to do that? 3 beautiful innocent children stabbed to death and people reacted in a furious rage to it. For that, Starmer has created a speech announcing a totalitarian enforcement for anyone resisting their children being attacked. How utterly tone deaf and inhumane can a person be? Also, you are going to just make complaining about your kids getting blew up or stabbed, you're just going to make that illegal instead of dealing with the actual problem. Sort of saw that coming, but still. Bit weird, innit?
I want to thank all of the police officers across the country who have already, as they do so often, stood up to intimidation and violence in the past few days and indeed throughout the summer. And let me be clear, this afternoon was not about pointing the finger of blame. That is not how this government of service conducts its business, because it doesn't work. Rather, this was a meeting to pull together our response, a response both to the immediate challenge, which is clearly driven by far-right hatred, but also all violent disorder that flares up.
And there you have it, from the rat in a suit's own mouth. The immediate challenge. The immediate challenge is not dealing with the blokes who kill kids. The immediate challenge is dealing with plumbers and bricklayers and window cleaners and bus drivers who complain about it when the kids and the grandkids get killed in the face. Yeah, that's the problem. Definitely the main problem is you getting angry about another problem that isn't the main one, apparently. So there we are. That's how we arrive at now, 3 hours ago, the main headline on the BBC after one of the most appalling attacks in British history. In British history. It's worse than 7/7, because at least they were just targeting random civilians. This one, they were purposely killing children. So I don't believe it's hyperbolic to say it's one of the worst in history. Even the Luftwaffe just indiscriminately bombed. They didn't go, right, we'll just target nurseries. Yeah, we'll just do that. And lo and behold, the main story on the BBC homepage today is this. We're watching you, far-right protesters warned. A Home Office minister says criminal activity will not be tolerated ahead of expected demonstration. But they tolerated criminal activity when people were rioting in Hare Hills and Leeds, and when people who don't look like me, but they look like, Osama bin Laden's kids, when they protest and do criminal activity. And we know all the ATM fraud is foreign gangs, and most of the drug dealing and the people trafficking and the sexual assault, and most of that's foreign gangs, and they're coming from places like Albania and Pakistan, and that is all tolerated. But what definitely won't be tolerated is you complaining about your 5-year-old granddaughter getting a knife in the face. Totally logical. The Home Office Minister has warned the normal people that the police are watching them. Demonstrations are expected in cities across the country because, funny old thing, people don't like it when kids get twatted. Hundreds of bell-end-shaped churches are strengthening security amid concern that the places where the people who blew up the Manchester Evening News Arena and did 7/7 and the Borough Market and Lee Rigby and all the rest of it, where they like to hang out, well, they could possibly be targeted. Lord Hanson said police are monitoring organisers and using facial recognition technology to identify people. So there we are, the conclusion. Everything the Angry Bootneck said has come along, even down to them using technology to control us, like some hideous futuristic version of 1984 crossed with a brave new world. They're controlling you via a medium of the boot on the throat and the entertainment and the internet connection, so nobody can be bothered to do anything about it. And then unholy technology to make sure that you can do nothing about it. And remember, the cryptocurrencies are coming and they'll stop you from traveling where you want to go. You won't be able to fly. You won't be able to get a train. You won't be able to eat what you like. You won't be able to buy tabs, drink booze, do anything fun, because the commie dogs are running the show, and that's the way they like it. And as I told you, what you should do is read The Gulag Archipelago, a fantastic novel by Solzhenitsyn, who explains exactly what's coming down the pipeline. The jails are gonna fill up, boys, so buckle up. Tell all your grandparents that have never been arrested in 75 years, the best invest in Vaseline and soap on a rope because they're all going to end up manning the gulags under the Starmer government. And like I said, try and look on the bright side. The bright side is the worse it gets, the closer sensible people get to the normies waking up. And only then have you got a fighting chance. So fingers crossed, Starmer keeps doubling down on doing exactly the wrong thing. Builds about another 20 prisons, but doesn't fill them with the people who blow little girls up. Fills them with your granny and your granddad, and the plumbers and the bricklayers, and the normies who say, it'll be fine, just pay your taxes and keep your head down and it'll be fine. Yeah, cheers, easy. So that's my message of hope for the weekend. It's going exactly as I expected, and we should be pleased that it's going exactly as it's expected, because only if things go absolutely tits up has the European continent got a fighting chance. All right? So, well done, Comrade Starmlin, for doing exactly what it says on the tin. Thank you, and I hope you keep on doing exactly what you're doing. But that's just my opinion. If you think I'm totally wrong, and things will get way better, as long as you keep your head down and keep your nose clean and do exactly as you're told all the time. Importing tens of millions of strange, unvetted, hairy men to Europe every year will definitely not result in more acts of mass chaos. Yeah, please let me know if you think that, so I can write a letter to your local MP and recommend that you be forcibly sterilised for having chronic stupidity in your gene pool. And you never know, with the way things are going, they might be happy to do it. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you all for a live stream at 7 p.m. UK tomorrow. All right, be there or be square. Take it easy. Cheers.